Welcome to the Polygon. Good evening. We can all take our seats because we're going to begin this wonderful event this evening. My name is Oluwasayo Olowo-Ake. I am the education programmer here at the gallery, and I would like to acknowledge that the Polygon Gallery is situated on the village of Aslahan, home to the Skomish Nation, and on the territories of the Tsleil-Waututh and Musqueam nations. It is important for us not only to think of what this means for us as uninvited settlers, but also to actively live and work in our various spheres of influence, honoring the owners of this land and their knowledges. Because we have a long way to go. So I hope we can all keep that in mind today and even after this event. But today, the conversation is titled Transition, Translation, Transcendence, and it expands the discussion put forward by Jeremy Shaw's exhibition by looking at transcendence, memory, and technology from an African and Afro-Diasporic lens, with our speakers drawing from Yoruba and Ewe artistic traditions. So today, I'm excited to introduce to you two people. The first person is Qudus Onikeku. Qudus Onikeku is the founder and artistic director of the QDance Center, a world-renowned artist, researcher, innovator, and social impact engineer. Over the past decade, he has established himself as a major international artist, working across modes such as performance, installation, curating, and community organizing. His international artistic practice intersects his interest in visceral body movements, kinesthetic memory, and embracing an artistic vision and futuristic practice that both respects and challenges Yoruba artistic traditions. And after completing his higher education in France in 2009, Qudus launched his first company, YK Project, in Paris, with which he created several solo and group dance pieces to critical acclaim. In 2014, he returned to Lagos, Nigeria, with his partner Hajarat, and together they co-founded the QDance Center, an incubator with which they examine and experiment with the possible intersections between art and the society at large. Qudus has been a favorite on major international stages and festivals across 60 countries, including Biennale de Lyon, Centre Pompidou, TED Global, and the Venice Biennale. He has also been a visiting professor of dance at the University of California, Davis, and Columbia College, Chicago. His dance works are in the permanent collection of the National Gallery of Canada. And now to the second person, Manuel Piña. Manuel is an artist, social, and spiritual activist. He was born in Havana, Cuba, and graduated as a medical engineer in Vladimir, Russia, in 1983. He began exhibiting his art in 1992 and has been a professor in UBC's Faculty of Art History and Visual Arts since 2004. His research adopts spirituality and technology as a way of addressing present realities and challenges. His work explores digital imaging technologies and transmedia languages to investigate their role in the creation of our present and their generative potentials to enable new sensibilities, ways of life, and community. Manuel Piña is the co-founder of the New Tribe School, an online and land-based global network of healers, teachers, and cultural and software activists working towards the preservation and dissemination of ancestral wisdoms and languages from around the globe. His work has been exhibited in the Americas and Europe, including Havana Biennale, Istanbul Biennale, Grey Gallery, Doxy Gallery, and Daros Museum. But I am just going to jump right into the first question, and since our title, the title of this conversation or this event is Transition, Translation, Transcendence, my first question to both of you is, how do you define transcendence?
To me?
To both of you.
Oh,
both of you.
okay.
How do you define transcendence?
That was the last question. So
first
I was thinking about my answer. So now I thought about the answer. So transcendence is, I replied to you that I have no idea what you're talking about actually, right?
Yes.
But of course, and later on you didn't have an answer for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, go on.
But I think I have a very good definition of what it is, or a pointing to a definition of what it is. There is a certain God, right? In Western African cultures, that has a prominent place because it's a God that you constantly run to for advice. Every move important you're gonna do, you consult that oracle, right? And this is where our practices and interests come together. I forgot what I was saying.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So there is a God, right? And the strange thing about that God, right, is that the person who consults or talks or appeals to this deity, which is the priest, quote unquote, does it in a certain system. There is a system for it, but it turns out the system is a binary system of 16 digits, right? And 16 digits are these gods, again, quote unquote. So this priest memorizes these stories, right? Gives them to his disciples. So the process of divination, quote unquote divination, is go from these doors and corridors that your decisions in life will determine, right? So this system is a system that contains all the possibilities in all possible universes, and it's your choices about that path, that divination, that this God tells you about. But the thing is that the point is that this God actually communicates with you in a digital binary system. And at some point, of course, you cannot memorize more story. There is a limit. And from then on, there is a communication, a direct guidance with this God again, right? Quote unquote. And that for me is the perfect definition of transition. How the digital enters into a spiritual, quote unquote, space, right? And how that puts into question what is actually a God, what is a priest, and what is divination. And basically you end up that what's going on. So that's a long answer to your question.
Okay. Let me just context for the audience. Manuel is referring to the Ifa divination system. That is, I'll say Ifa is an oracle. And basically what happens is that there are a set of codes that the diviner kind of draws on this board. He uses a divination board and 8 knots sometimes for. And when those knots are thrown, a code is formed on the board, and that code translates to, each code is attached to verses that the diviner has stored in their head. And so whatever code is kind of given on that board, the diviner would read out or recite out the chapters. And so that's what Manuel is talking about with the binary codes, where it's not, it's not like what Western people would think some African religions look like, but it relies on literally ones and zeros and these codes to be formed in order to recite those chapters. Yeah, just context. Qudus, do you have any thoughts on what transcendence might mean to you?
I think it's transcendre, to transcend. I think to transcend is to move from a state to another, right? Is to, I guess if I ask ChatGPT, it's gonna say exactly that.
It's good that you actually say that, move from one place to another. Let me go to my next question. So you didn't talk about this work, you didn't show this. I'm going to bring up Out of This World now. But I think you wrote something that I saw that I think is very, important for this conversation that we're having. So I'm just going to read out your quote. You say, "The principal interest in journeying out of this world is not to seek a moralistic hero journey into the unknown, a representation of the non-living, nor am I interested in the anthropological meaning of death. My curiosity staggers on a purely artistic exploration of the aesthetics of the ghost, that which lives with us, but not one of us. What it means to be self-convinced of living in a human world and lose that conviction to irrational disorder. So the West is very used to transcendence being like journeying out into the unknown, higher, to gain like a direction and an awareness of self. But when I read this, I was like, interesting, because no one has ever brought up this idea of something, or let me not say something, but the within and the among and in this world. So can you talk to us a bit more about that understanding of something that is that which lives with us, but is not one of us?
Okay, I think many of us, Yorubas, I guess Africans also in general, I don't know other cultures, but we grew up with stories, with a lot of stories were always part of our world-making process. So as you teach the kids how to walk, how to be respectful to the elders, you also need to teach them about stories. And stories was never a linear story. It can start from anywhere and it ends anywhere. We'll continue tomorrow. and for me, in those stories, the entire world can be condensed, or our entire worldview can be condensed in any of those stories. Like, there's always a story of the ghost or of the animals. But even stories of drum, of the sun, of tortoise. But one thing that they do in all of those stories is to personify or anthropomorphize, that's the word, all the elements of this story. Like in Amos Tutuola's book, there was a moment in his journey, he said he met, sung, dance, and sing. He didn't say he met music. He said he met song, dance, and sing as an actual personage, you know. So, in those stories of ghosts, for example, especially, we were never meant to think that, again, Western logic of ghosts is very different from our logic of ghosts, let's be clear. It's not a scary thing. And it's not the dead that returned, no. In fact, as we are here right now, there are ghosts amongst us. Do Yoruba believe in a dichotomy of a kind of like a spherical circle between what they call Orun and Aye? So in the world of the Orun is the world of the heavens, right? And Aye is the world of the living. So they believe that in the world of Orun, there are spaces for ancestors, space for the spirits, and then spaces for the Orishas, the gods. But there is a trilogy between the world of the ancestors, the world of the living, and that of the spirit. Meaning, when you die, you don't go to heaven or hell. There's another door, which is called afterlife. And in that afterlife, you are entering into the world of the dead. And if you're able to achieve what you've come to do based on whatever agreements you had before coming. So it doesn't mean that you have to achieve whatever, but there is a certain kind of like agreement before you came that I'm coming to accomplish this in this lifetime. So if you are not able to accomplish those stuff, then you're sent back to the spirit world and given new lessons and new understandings. And then based on that understanding and lesson and what you want to accomplish again, then you decide the portal through which you come. I'm tired of coming as a black person. Let's try Chinese. Yeah. I want to be twins. I want to have a partner. Whatever agreement. So we believe that the children chooses their parent. It's not the other way around. So, and that child has chosen you for a specific reason. So when that child comes here, don't try to think you are older than that child. In fact, it was because of reincarnation that child is back here. That child could have been your great-grandfather. So this invisible understanding of life and living moves with us in our reality. So we know that everything cannot be understood and not everything can be seen. And there is a difference between absence and invisible. So if you realize that I use them almost interchangeably, absence and invisible are not the same. Absence means it's not there, and present means it will be there. Then visible means we cannot see it. Visible means we can see it. Invisible means we cannot see it. We cannot see it does not mean that it's not there. So, and if we cannot see it, it's our own problem. It doesn't mean that because you cannot see me, then I should be visible. No, it's the other way around again. It's your job to know that you can sense, you can feel what is not visible. So I don't need to see it to know that it is there. And once I can have that kind of relationship with the invisible, then the invisible becomes as tangible as every one of us in this room. If I was on Zoom, I will only imagine you are there. And I will interact with you, knowing that you're there. That's what brings me back to the conversation about technology.
Yes. Manuel, do you have any thoughts on anything Qudus just mentioned?
Well, the last phrase, I'm very interested. I was very interested in watching. Oh, yes. I was very interested in the relation with the camera, because the image is about a movement to which you have a commitment, but that commitment is now interrupted by the camera, right? You change speed, there is choppiness to it. So there is a very interesting correlation between the essence of what you do and yeah.
Again, with the absence and invisible and what is visible. And I think the camera kind of does that in a way, like things that you're able to capture and freeze. And I guess maybe that's the kind of metaphor for what you've just been talking about earlier, about even us being able to sense it with our beings, what is invisible, what is absent, what is visible.
So just to kind of so because of the acceptance of the presence of the invisible, there is a whole space for imagination that just opened up. And in that world of imagination, the Yorubas never left it empty. There is always things in that world of the invisible. Beyond the real. I'm talking about now there's a whole lot of fiction that can be written into that space. So when I'm performing solo work, duet, whatever, I'm always convinced. For example, I can see this thing flying right now. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? Yeah, you see, I'm the only one that can see it. But you cannot. But it's actually very tiny and it's moving like this. That world now becomes a space where I can occupy. When I'm even performing on stage, I am not alone on stage. And I feel like maybe that was also what, I don't know, those who say space is not empty. Let's even go to science now. You know, there's oxygen in this room. Can you see it? You cannot. It doesn't mean it's not there. Gravity is in this room. Can you see it? Can you feel it on your chair? No. It doesn't mean it's not there. So that space of all the possibles that are also coexisting with us is the real understanding of the Yoruba people. But that thing that you're talking about, it was actually a metaphor for a world that only believes in what it sees, which is itself. And that itself has a very peculiar image. And anything that doesn't look like itself is considered a ghost.
A lot to unpack there, but maybe we would circle back eventually. I know that we would talk about different things. I know it to come up again, but I actually want to move into just going further into like spirituality and technology. When I look at Jeremy Shaw's work, I see him use spirituality and technology interchangeably. So if you go to Phase Shifting Index, for example, the spirituality or the technology is math or meditative practice in different videos. But at the same time, towards universal pattern recognition that we see, the photographs here, there is a clear divide between what is spiritual, what is technological, what is hedonistic, a very clear divide. And so I think I just wanted to, in my earlier conversation with both of you, when I asked you about spirituality and technology, you said it was the same. And so I think I want you to talk more to the audience about how those two are linked or the same for both of you.
Well, the example of the Ifa is an obvious one, right? I can't think of anything more mysterious than that.
The example of what?
The Ifa system. I cannot think of anything more mysterious than that. Well, maybe flying with Flavio is very close, but still, you know. But I think we are in a moment in which that diffusion of the digital into the unknown is mirror, or I cannot say mirror, is echoed like in a chamber, right? Fractally.
Yeah, fractally. Yeah.
In our existences now, right? This technological essence of us, okay, I want to just say, and then I can explain or not. But there is an essential, the technological in us is gaining a momentum, right? And we can see our existences more and more taking place in that realm. But with it, we are bringing another versions of ourselves, right? We are, we are experiencing some kind of spiritual transitioning there, momentary existences, or not as momentary, right? As generation goes, I always talk about Monica's son, right? How at 3 he was a fan of Russian animation films, right? How the heck he figured that out? Nobody knows. That's nature. It's not second nature. Second nature to us. That's a new kind of existence, literally, that to me it cannot be separated from our spiritual existence. We are fundamentally somehow expanding or extending in some ways, right? And after all, dance is a technology, right? When we're saying dance is not an hedonistic thing, right? No, dance is a technology. It's like a super sophisticated yoga that aligns you physically and with others in resonance with the drums and the sentences. You know, so it's so intimately that it's just, well, let alone our own machines, right? So, okay, before I'm sorry, I'm used to 3 hours lecture.
I think it's the real, again, technology. What is technology? Spiritual. What do you call it? Spirituality. What is spirituality? And I think the phrasing of that question in itself makes it clear that there is a presumption of what spirituality is, and there's an assumption of what technology is, which is like the never-ending war between religion and science. For me, and I feel like the premise of that assumption is what we need to reconsider. Technology, let's go back to the original word, technos, is a tool. technology is just a tool. The first technology was technology. Yoruba people call it technology, meaning you press it and light will wake it up. So it's not magic. There's so many technologies that we are using, and if we can use it as a tool, then it's science and it's tech, digital, whatever I want to call it. Okay, if I can understand everything I said again about the invisible space that the Yoruba people have created on an entire world, forget about Yoruba people for a moment. If a certain kind of human beings can do that, and that is actually solving a whole lot of mental questions that they may have, because it just becomes evident for everybody, including the children and the adult and everybody. It becomes so evident. So if some people can do that, then anybody can do it, really. You just have to imagine it. So I'm saying that in that sense, it is a tool for. Now, you decide what you want to use your tool for. So if it's the tool, then it's science. We're not talking about I don't even know what people consider to be spirituality. Really, I'm always confused when people talk about that. I'm like, what are we really talking about? Like I've said, the Yoruba people believe that there are three distinctly different worlds: the world of the living, the world of the ancestors, and the world of the spirits. So which part of this world are we referring to when we talk about spirituality? What access are we gaining, or are we seeking to gain that we don't have access to? Then we brand it one thing. So again, spirituality, I don't really know what it means, and I don't know if it's on the opposite of technology.
Okay. That's interesting. And I think just carrying on from there, just to talk more about spirituality, I guess whenever any kind of African religion or spirituality is mentioned, there's always kind of dark, mysterious connotation that follows it that doesn't follow any other religious or spiritual practice, where the spiritual is overemphasized and the existence or the potential of anything technological is non-existent. And so when you look at Ifa divination system, going back there, and the idea of the diviner and these codes and these chapters and verses that the diviner recites, you have already this kind of oracle where there's no Wi-Fi, there's no computer, there's nothing. But like, this has been existing way
There is a multiverse that opens up.
Yeah, but and this has been existing way before the computer ever came. And so when I was thinking about how to ask all of these questions, like, so what do you now then call technology? If I understand Ifa in this way, like, if this is the foundation with which I understand how to approach anything technological or anything technology or anything spiritual, then I guess I have to redefine everything else because it doesn't make sense. Yeah. And so I just, moving on to like the digital interface, I actually going to ask this question to Manuel, because I know you work a lot with that, and I stumbled upon this quote in your project Machines where you say that it's the sites of remerging of the ancestral and the new. And then I wanted to ask, because then I guess we understand, if we've just been talking about Ifa divination system, we can say in a sense that's ancestral wisdom. Yes. So now we come to the digital interface, and then I ask, what is ancestral, what is new? Are they different? Do they merge? Like, how do you navigate that on this, if we see technology now as this digital interface that you've just been showing us, for example? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How does ancestral knowledge, how are they working in relationship to one another?
Well, there is we all know now that the problem with the biggest, academia has many problems, but one big problem, but one of them is this new history that is revealing to us, right? All of a sudden we have all these wisdoms from all over the world showing us that there was so much knowledge somewhere, right? So that, what is turned out to be called spirituality is just technologies, ways of being, right? Ways of achieving maximal human potential, right? That's the goal of those religions, right? And in my work, I don't know. That is a big question, right? I by chance created something that was touching people. I had no idea. I did it just by chance, quote unquote. It just happened to me, right? And that has been figured out. That's why I'm trying to be figured out all these years, right? How do you do that? But I also, I mean, and then introduction. I see it very much in his practice, which has this. I wouldn't say glossy, but he has the textures and the flavors of something extremely contemporary, right? Bringing the contemporary or pushing what is these flavors that's so wonderful in his images. But this is what he would call the thing that goes, but the really important, or the means to the really important stuff. And the really important stuff for him is fundamentally spiritual. It's creating space for growth, for culture to flourish. So it is in that in between that I think we are living more and more, and where we should probably inhabit consciously.
And could just let me come to you, because I know that Yoruba philosophy is at the heart of what you do. And I was reading again, you were writing a text, and I don't remember, this was under reincarnation, but then you said that for Yorubas, time is cyclical and non-linear, and the future and the past aren't in conflict. And I was thinking of that time, again, going back to Jeremy Shaw, in understanding that, will I be spoiling this if I say this? But understanding that time is warped. Let me just say like that. Time is warped. It's non-linear as well. But I don't know that it's cyclical in the way that you talk about time being cyclical. And so, in understanding time as this thing that continues, for lack of a better word to describe a circle, and I guess I want you to talk more about that understanding of time, and also the understanding of what is ancestral and new in the context of what that time is, being cyclical.
Yeah, I think, you're very right. There's a difference between nonlinear and cyclical. Nonlinear it might still be going the same direction. It's just not linear. Okay, but cyclical is very deliberate about the direction. And the cyclical can be clockwise, and it can be anti-clockwise, and it's still cyclical. So I think Still Life was the first work I made. Not Still Life, Spirit Child 2019 was the first work I made when I started really thinking about that word contemporary, and I came to the conclusion that contemporary come from the root word contemporarius, which actually means, literally, it means with time. That's when I realized that I need to focus on time because there is a major philosophical difference between the Western conception of time and the Africanist conception of time. And I know also that maybe that simple idea of linear time is one of the biggest problems we have in this civilization entirely. Because the idea of life after death, either going to paradise or hell, has also become a fundamental understanding of our idea of morality. So, this idea of progress, economical progress, first world over third world, and all of that, is also set on this idea of linear time. Futurism, which is the idea that there is a clear distinction between where we're coming from and where we're going to, Futurism, the idea of past, present, and future, the way it is designed, has also come to color our idea of what the future should look like. What if we look at a future that is not going anywhere, but is actually cyclical? And cyclical does not mean repeat. Just like I've talked about the life of the child that grew up, that died, that didn't fulfill certain things, and returned, got some information, then returned. Is that a repeat life? No, it's a continuous life. It's a non-ending life, and it's not going to be the same at every clock of 12. So if we are counting time in that cyclical way, then our problem of fear of the future disappears, because there is no freaking future. Everything is rolling at the time. So the idea of new and old also comes in that non-understanding that my child could possibly be my grandfather. So it's almost like those coming behind then becomes the eldest. Even in terms of how we talk about wisdom. Maybe your child is wiser than you. Maybe. So if I'm moving with that logic of time, again, my interest as an artist is spaces where I can imagine. It opens a whole field of imagination. Now, that is me trying to take it away from the mystical thing that it sounds like. It's just me as an artist. It gives me a huge space for imagination.
Okay, we're going to go further into this imagination now. Manuel, you say something about one of your projects, Magines, which is one of the things you showed earlier. You say it is the reimagination of the digital interface as a new universal language towards the creation of healing experiences. And then again, you say to reclaim the digital interface is to reclaim the right over our imagination. But let me break it down into two parts. I think Manuel answered the first part, Qudus answered the second part. So, Manuel, I'm curious about how you use the word new. You know, in that quote, Magines is the reimagination of the digital interface as a new universal language. And I'm also interested in how you talk about the creation of healing experiences. I may be wrong, but my assumption when I read that was, is it that the digital interface was not universal, or is that it was a kind of universal language, but it wasn't working towards creating healing experiences? Like, how, just let me ask your thoughts on that, the digital interface, healing experiences, and the idea of the new universal language.
Is that the last question? Yeah?
Almost.
Almost. Because it could be a good moment to bring out the phones and talk about precisely that.
Yeah, maybe this is the time to bring that out,
if everybody can bring their phones, and let's put it on the floor and make a mosaic and see what happens. If you read. Oh, you have nobody has a...
Oh,
the code.
I see. Okay, maybe
shall
we finish the questions and then we'll bring it back up?
Okay. The thing with I already actually mentioned is that we know and we take it as a natural thing. That these spaces will affect us mentally. We know that they are meant to be not only harmful but also addictive. But that's the way things are. You know, it's a very strange situation in which we are, right? And we just take it for granted because nobody seems to figure out the fact that this is something that is controlling us and that we should have some agency. It's a language over which we have no agency, have control of everything we do. It's shaped us, reshaped us profoundly, right? Again, spiritually, profoundly spiritually. And yet, it's a virtual language in the hands of technocrats, right? It's like you have people, it's like, you know, all you can read in your life is telenovelas or eat McDonald's. Literally, it's as harmful as that, right? So, what if we could actually use the language? How could we? If it's something that can be so easily harmful, that should be the opposite, should be possible too, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's the notion of what is beautiful here. It's not just it's beautiful as a technology, too, again.
I see. Okay. And Qudus, let me ask you about the second part of that quote. To reclaim the digital interface is to reclaim the right over our imagination. I'm now interested, when you were talking earlier about the space to imagine, which is for you not quite technology like the digital interface, but like an actual thing here. How do you juxtapose those two things? The space to imagine here, but also what does it mean for what does that reclamation of the digital space and reclaiming the right over imagination mean, if my question makes sense?
I think the second part of the question answers very much, what he was saying. Spaces for imagination. Because the interfaces with which we use to navigate life, for me, I think is the interface that is more harmful than the teachings that comes through them. What am I saying in essence is that I was telling Shayo and my brother here that I'm not any more interested in watching a show or a film that is talking about climate change and still bringing more plastics and things like that to make that case. I said, no, that's why we are artists. We have to imagine something else for the audience, because if you keep showing them what they already know, you have not done anything for them. So the interfaces we use to achieve imagination is precisely what my brother is talking about. We need to change those narratives that we have for so long imagined to be a fact or a given. Like, no, it's not a given. It's a given because you were born here. And the climate here is a particular way. It's not so hot, it's cold. So all of that will have to mean something. The fact that there's winter 8 months in a year, that has to mean something for the psyche of the people who live here. So they cannot bring that psychology on to the other side of the planet, where it's completely opposite. But the technology we all use is being designed in this place where when you keep digging the floor, there is no natural resources. What does that mean for the people that live here? Maybe it makes them more greedy, more competitive, and all of those kind of things. So these are the people that are creating technology that the whole world, that has a totally different reality sometimes. No, most times. And we all are going to use it as a unit of humanity. That is to say, when they are creating those things, they know, they don't imagine any difference. They know human beings will use it. So if human beings will use it, and human beings are very, 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 very diverse, how come you're the only one coding? How come you're the only one designing interfaces for all the others who are coming from a different logic of existence entirely? So what he, I think, is also advocating for, which is like me, is can we diversify the interfaces, the entry points, for imagination to occur?
Okay, yes. And definitely my last question, which follows on from what you've just mentioned here, is what happens next? What is the goal? I think the conversation has left from altering one's reality. I don't think that's not what this is about anymore. But in understanding, for example, this new universal language and things like that, in your work, what is the goal? What happens next? Should we even be asking that question? But anyway, you can answer.
Okay. Yeah, I asked you before if it was, so this is the last.
This is the last.
No, it's not. I mean, I'm happy to stay here. Actually, I was thinking of occupying the gallery and spend a couple of hours here just chatting away, but well, we're very close anyway. But I want to acknowledge Stan Douglas, who is a pioneer of bringing together technology into a language that dominates us. So he has done that a long time ago. So I always felt one of the few people that have a real intellectual complicity, right? So thank you, Robert, for coming and acknowledge his work. It's part of what we're doing too. So what was I?
What happens next?
What happened next? Well, apparently, okay, I think that, I think I have it in a position now that I can get people to start playing around with this language, with imagining what this language is, right? I've been trying with my students many things, trying this idea. So what happens, we now combine the efforts of Qudus. What I'm happening is, for instance, I just created, I don't say I created, I started a conversation or a collaboration with a school in the village my village in Africa. So the children can be part of that too, this conversation, learn from there, or create their own things, right? So that's the future, this dream of connecting Flavius to school, which will happen also very, very soon, my brother. So that's the hope, these connections. And of course, our brothers from Brazil. So that's the dream.
Connection, community. Okay, Qudus, what's the goal? What happens next after all of this has been said and done? Is there a goal?
Yes, we die.
We die?
We die and we come back again to the same version.
Nothing hopeful, or?
Yes.
Because nobody exits here. We're coming back. For me, I think is to keep helping people out of the addiction. But the only people who could help anybody out of addiction cannot be addicted to the thing. So it's only people outside of addiction that can help those who are addicted. So I guess the goal is to create more people that are outside of the addiction.
Can I ask what the addiction is and what the thing is?
Addiction to what we consider to be reality. In general, we have to lose it, but we need people that will help us. That's why the outside is always more interesting. But Europe and America have taught us how to deal with the outsiders. We have to get out of that addiction.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and your conversation.